Real on the Radio with Lizzie and Kayleen.
Came across a great quote the other day on fasting, which made me think this is a good conversation for Kayleen and myself. And the quote simply is, Christian fasting at its root is a hunger of a homesickness for God. Now, I don't know about you, Kayleen. Good morning. Have you ever felt homesick for God?
What a beautiful quote that is, Lizzie, isn't it? And isn't that really, I think it just typifies the whole focus of fasting, to really worship God, to come closer to God, because we need Him, because we miss Him, because we love Him, because we want direction, because we want answers. But most of all, really, we just want to sit at His feet, because in that place we are truly home.
Yes. Oh, yes, we are home. I love that. Yes, when I read that quote, I'll say it again, somebody might have missed it. Christian fasting at its root is a hunger of a homesickness for God. I thought, I feel a little bit homesick for God, in the sense that there's been times in my life that fasting's been something that I've really relied on. There was a period of my life quite a few years ago now, where I used to fast every Sunday. I felt Sunday was quite easy because already for a few hours of the day I was sitting on my backside in church, wasn't doing a lot physically, and obviously, going without food can kind of knock you around a bit, especially if you're not used to it. But it was a really precious time, and I remember it strengthened me. It made me. I was closer to God, and I felt more able to hear His voice, and those can be good reasons to fast, can't they, Kayleen?
Oh, totally, Lizzie. There's lots of reasons to fast. And it says in Matthew 6:16, Jesus says, when we fast. He doesn't say if we fast. He says when we fast. And so I think it's a requirement of us, not in a religious, legalistic way, but when we fast, as you say, we're closer to God. And I think it's like any relationship in a natural sense. When we want to be closer to someone, we're fully engaged with them. When someone we love, in that first flush of even relationships, but certainly our children, our family, those who are close to us, we want to be with them. And so we set aside our own issues often, we set aside time, and we can't help but become closer because we're intentionally seeking. And when we take away the thinking about food, the shopping for food, the preparing food, and all of the other practical things that are associated with eating, we find that we have so much time that we are actually able to devote to God. And I believe He just loves it when we sit at His feet, when we come home to Him, and we intentionally look to Him. It's such a beautiful picture, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, fasting can mean different things, though, can't it, Kayleen? It doesn't just have to be food. What's some other examples of fasting?
Well, chocolate, Lizzie. I mean, that's a thing for us all, I think, to think about. But we can fast from technology. We can turn off our phones, turn off our social media, turn off the television. We can come away from the intrusion, which so much of our life is about today. Things beeping, my phone beeps, my computer, I know that there's a message. So we can fast from that. And again, what that's doing is just abstaining from those things that are sort of automatically part of our life, so that we can intentionally seek God for a season of time with Him, to be strengthened, to grow, for an intentional reason, for a particular purpose. We may fast for a particular purpose or a particular reason. We may be seeking a direction, but essentially we're worshipping God in that time of fasting. Did you find that when you took that time out, Lizzie, and spent that time with God when you were fasting?
Yeah, look, for me it was a lifeline. I mean, I'll be honest, isn't that what this segment's about? It was the time straight after my ex-husband left, and I just had such a desperation in my heart to get through life. I feel a bit teary even remembering it. And so I just had to be connected to God.
Yes.
It was
and
the
isn't that such a wonderful example?
Yeah, it was just the only way to get through that time of my life where people look at me now and say, wow, Lizzie, you didn't just survive, you thrived, but I knew where my strength came from, you know. I knew where my strength came from. I knew who I needed to be connected to. I knew what was happening around me in a physical sense and a financial sense. And I was like, I can't hear this. I can't listen to this. I need to know what God's heart is for me. I need to know God's intention. I need to know his direction, because that is what I need to build my life on. And for me, you know, fasting at that time of my life was absolutely crucial. I needed it. I was desperate.
Yes. And isn't that such a testimony to fasting, Lizzie?
Yeah.
You came home because you needed the Father at that time, and you recognised that. And, you know, when we actually think about it, fasting is really just a temporary measure for this time and place, because when Jesus returns, we won't be fasting. We will be feasting. Isn't that right?
I love
We
that.
will be feasting.
Yeah.
And so here we have this opportunity to come closer to God, to meet our needs, to be loved, to be cared for, to have a direction, to seek him for something in particular. We really are truly coming home when we fast.
From a practical point of view, I would say if you want to fast and you're not well, good idea not to go without food. Like at the moment, I would quite like to fast, but I think, as Kayleen suggested, maybe a technology fast, because I had COVID, and even though I didn't have it I had a really mild dose. What it's left me with is a bit of fatigue, and I'm finding every time I eat, I'm like, oh gosh, that helps. So just practically, right, Kayleen? Sometimes you can't go the whole way of what you'd perhaps like to do, but God sees our heart, doesn't he?
Oh, he sees our heart. And again, fasting, it's a humbling experience, because what normally supports us, if you like, during the day, is no longer there. And so we're humbling ourselves to him. He sees that, Lizzie, whether it's for half an hour, whether it's for half a day, whether it's for half a week. Yes, he sees our heart. God sees our hearts in humility during our fasting time.
What would you just say in closing as a final thought, Kayleen, on fasting?
Well, I would say that for all of us, at some point or another, when we fast and when we come into that place of seeking the Lord in our fast, there's no doubt that we grow in God in that time. And even from your own testimony, Lizzie, you in that time of challenge and desperation, you grew because you came to see him in a different way. You came to understand his presence. And so fasting draws us more closely into his presence. And that's a beautiful and special reward, isn't it?
It is indeed. Amen. Look forward to catching up with you next time, Kayleen. Thank you so much.